Right. I'm Karen Dial, and this is Hungry Sheep, my YouTube channel. And this is my first series about Jonathan Edwards and his 70 resolutions about how to be devoted life to the Lord. And I want to share that with you, and I want to share the events of his life, quirkiness of his brilliant mind, and the eccentricities of his heart. So who is Jonathan Edwards? Known as America's theologian, America's genius, one of the greatest philosophers in history. He's perhaps most famous for being what was said to be a catalyst of the first Great Awakening, or the catalyst. Not only did revival come to his congregation in Northampton, Massachusetts, when there were over 300 conversions within a relatively short period of time, and this is in the 1730s, 1740s, he not only had this within his church, but he documented exactly what he saw. So he documented exactly what the individuals were going through. And that often included these physical manifestations that the Boston church wasn't really prepared to hear about. And much of the church of the world wasn't prepared to hear about it, because people may fall down, they may faint, they may be in a spiritual trance, if you will, for 24 hours, 48 hours. Now, I want you to imagine someone in church falling out for 24 hours, no food. That's pretty hard to create and manifest on your own. It's incredibly hard to manifest 24 hours with no food in an attempt to copycat the revival, the spiritual awakening of the person sitting next to you on the pew. That's very hard to do that. So he, in his logical mind, brilliant mind, was able to document exactly what he was seeing in case after case, testimony after testimony. And these testimonies were read in other congregations, and that sparked revival in those congregations. And this went up and down the eastern seaboard, and this is the first Great Awakening. It became a collective reality, so much so that secular atheist historians do not discount the fact that the first Great Awakening happened. The mass conversions to Christianity, to a fervent Christianity, happened, and then that they would then set almost a philosophical platform that from there would spring forth the American Revolution. That would give an even greater spiritual climate of freedom, for which the gospel would propagate in the United States. And for those of you who have ever studied the spiritual climate of England, of Europe now, and the spiritual climate of where I stand in the Bible Belt, of a little tiny beautiful part of the Bible Belt right now, if you've ever studied the spiritual climate, they are vastly different. And you have to ask yourself, was the revolution a good thing? Did we get this freedom for a reason? And then you have to look at your congregation today, your spiritual life today, and say, are we squandering this spiritual freedom? Before Jonathan Edwards ever became this revivalist, he was a young pursuer of God. I'll share stories from his childhood in which he would build a type of prayer chapel for he and his friends. As a 9-year-old, 11-year-old boy, he would build this and invite them into prayer. And this element of his life would never stop. There's documentation of him in a global prayer gathering, if you will, in which he was in correspondence, written correspondence, of course, in the mid-1700s, with pastors in Scotland, and they decided on a certain day at a certain time they would all pray together. So a global prayer movement without the internet. I mean, this is what Jonathan Edwards was a part of in his later life, and it never stopped. So what started in childhood, this dangerous enthusiasm that he was so criticized for, what started in his childhood never left him. This desire to communicate with God, the belief that God would communicate to him, the belief that the scriptures are true, the belief that if he followed the biblical mandates that he would be blessed. I mean, this fervent desire that God was in control, the sovereignty of God, of which he would never stop talking or stop writing on, is really incredible. That it's a lifelong pursuit. He would repent often, describe his own sin. Before he was a revivalist, he was a lover of the Lord, and one that really wanted to understand what the spiritual journey looked like. What does an individual spiritual journey look like? What do their mornings look like? Their evenings? What do their mealtime look like? He speaks a lot about food and drink. Sleep. He speaks a lot about sleep. He speaks about the practicalities of living a Christian life, a life surrendered to the Lord. And I feel like that I can use these 70 resolutions as a way to take us on a journey through his life, and I'll try to do that. And I hope you'll be in this journey with me.